Dawn crept over the landscape, illuminating the deserted wreckage of the Mugen train. The only sound was the occasional chirping of birds in the distance, creating a tranquil atmosphere. Just a minute ago, you had been crying, bawling your eyes out over the death of your Oba-chan, while holding her now lifeless body close to you, her head restly, gently in your lap as you cradle her. Though she appeared as if she was asleep, you knew she'd never wake. And all you can do is feel the weight of grief pressing down on your chest, suffocating you with intensity. Time seemed to move much slower, leaving you alone with your thoughts and the heavy burden of loss. Each second felt like an eternity as you sat there, trying to progress what had just occurred. Your tears had stopped flowing, leaving your cheeks damp and cold in the early morning air. Why was this happening to you? Why has gods forsaken you, commanding you to suffer with a grieving heart? It all felt so surreal, almost like a dream even, and no words couldn't describe the depth of sorrow you are feeling right now. Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Nezuko never left your side, trying to offer you as much comfort and support as they could while the Kayushiki finished up cleaning around the deserted Mugen train. They had to make haste before news of the derail got out and the authorities got involved. You blankly glanced over at Kojiro's lifeless body. Just a moment ago, he had a gaping hole in the center of his torso, a fatal wound given to him by the demon known as Akaza. Now, he was completely healed, leaving behind a large, permanent, star-shaped scar. And it's all thanks to your Oba-chan, who had used the final form of her soul-breathing style, a decision that ultimately led for her untimely death. It was a sacrifice she had been willing to make, all for the sake of you wanting to be happy with the man you loved. Despite it all, you couldn't help but feel a sense of self-loathing creeping up within you. Time and time again, Kojiro told you not to worry about him, reassuring you he knew how to take care of himself. "I'll take care of you," he promised, his words echoing in your mind. His voice had been filled with unwavering determination. Yet despite his conflict words, you couldn't help but feel bitter and helpless as you sat there, watching him lie motionless before you. "I hate myself," you inwardly thought, biting your lip. You hate yourself for letting him go. You should have frozen his feet to the floor when you had the chance. Or yet, should have gone with him. Instead, you allowed him to sweet-talk you into staying behind and look after your son and everyone. You kept your gaze on him, waiting for something to happen. Yet, there is nothing. "Miss Rengoku?" Tanjiro's soft voice breaks through the silence that envelops the wreckage as he sits on his knees beside you. "We'll be leaving soon," the young demon slayer informs, and you could obviously hear the permission in his tone as you slowly glance to him. Your heart twists, feeling his cheeks steer with tears. No doubt his heart is still heavy with guilt for falling to save his senpai and the demon. The Upper Moon 3, Akaza. Occasionally, the young boy and his friends had run to Kojiro and had gone on the Mugen train with him, which you were grateful for. Your husband wasn't alone in his final moments. Instead of responding, you found yourself lost without a voice, as you nodded at him before returning your gaze back towards Kojiro and Otetsu. Instead, it's quite the massacre sight, seeing you both, your foster mother and has been lying motionless before you. I'm sorry, Mr. Rengoku. Tanjiro suddenly replies, If I would have strong enough, Anaki and I mean, Rengoku's son, would be. The young Slayer's voice trails off, his words carrying a weight of regret and self-blame. It's all my fault. Tanjiro's body shook slightly as he cried. Sorrow still wrecked through him like an earthquake. Tears streamed from his eyes, unchecked and unstoppable. I couldn't help him. I wasn't strong enough. The invulnerable tone in his voice tugged at your heartstrings, revealing the depth of his compassion and the burden of guilt he carries for not being able to save Kojiro. Despite that, the flame pillar had told him before he passed. It still hurt like hell, and Tanjiro felt that he owed you a big fat apology, and apologizing for letting you down, apologizing for being weak, an apology for not being able to help Kojiro. Unbeknownst to Tanjiro, you weren't angry. You could never be angry at a young demon slayer. Regardless of the pain and sorrow that filled your heart, you found solace in knowing that Kojiro was not alone in this endeavor. The four had stood by his side, offering their unrivaled strength and support to help defeat the lower moon, Ennu, and save the passengers on the train. They may not be Hashira, but they had hearts of warriors, and for that, you were thankful. Plus, you've seen how much Kojiro accepted them with open arms, inviting them to stay at your shared house and accept them as an additional members of your family. As Tanjiro sits there with you, still muttering apology after apology and crying over the loss, you cracked a smile. A small tear streamed down your cheek before turning to glance at him. Generously, you removed your Oba-chan's head from your lap and laid her down next to Kojiro's own on the grundy before reaching for the crying teen. Tanjiro gasped in surprise as you wrapped your arms around him, pulling him close to you. Tanjiro, you whispered, your voice cracking with the effort of the contain of your own emotions as you held him close to your chest. You have nothing to apologize for. Your words were a soft balm to his tortured soul. You felt his body tense at first, but eventually he relaxed into your embrace, his tears soaking your kimono. You did everything you could, you assured him, stroking his hair gently. You've grown so much as a warrior. I'm proud of you. Your words surprised him. Proud? How could you possibly be proud of him when he... But if I had been strong, Kojiro would still be alive. Tanjiro looked up, his eyes red and crying. And your Oba-chan, Lady Osu, she wouldn't have... You placed a finger over his mouth to silence his apology. You knew he was not to blame for the tragedy that had fallen Kojiro, and despite trying so hard to help ease his mind, your own sorrow felt like a heavy burden that was crushing your chest. I don't blame you. I blame myself, you say, your voice barely audible as more tears fall from your eyes. I wanted to go on the mission with him. I wish I could have gone with him, to protect him, but he'd convinced me to stay behind. You tell him as tears kept coming and coming. Tanjiro looks at you with a pained expression, feeling your guilt as if it was his own. Apparently, you were both feeling the same way. However, he didn't enjoy seeing your crying, and it pained him how much to know how you felt responsibility for something that was not out of your control. He knew Kojiro would want you to be happy, and seeing you in such pain only invested his resolve to honor his fallen comrade. She wanted to come on a mission with me, but I couldn't risk the thought of anything happening to her. I know she's going to be very heartbroken and angry, so please, if you have time, pick a bunch of her favorite flowers for me and place them into her arms and tell her they're from me. Tell her I love her, and if she cries or cusses, hug her for a while. He remembered Kojo's words. Without a word, Tanjiro gently pulled away from your embrace and wiped away his tears with a sleeve before standing up abruptly. He looked towards the tall grass and rushed over. Gonpachiro? What are you doing? Inosuke asked in confusion. You also wanted to know what he was doing as you watched him look through the bushes. Tanjiro's eyes searched the tall grass for any sign of your favorite flowers. However, he didn't see any. Only a bunch of bizarre-looking flowers with orange, yellow, and red petals. Ironically, they resembled flames. Kojiro. With no hesitation, he plucked a few of them before hurrying back to you. Here, Miss Rengoku. Please, don't cry, he said, holding out the flowers to you. Kojiro-senpai told me to pick you flowers in case you'd be upset. I know they're not your favorite, but hopefully they'll still make you feel better. Oh, he smiled despite his teary eyes. Oh, God. You looked at the flower bouquet, your eyes wide in surprise. The flowers were fire lilies, their petals a vibrant mix of fiery hues, mirroring Kojiro's appearance. A gentle smile tugs at the corner of your mouth as you took the bouquet from Tanjiro's outstretched hand. He also wanted to tell you that he loves you and he's sorry, Tanjiro whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. And mine. So please, Miss Rengoku, don't blame yourself. Kojiro-senpai just wanted to keep you safe. He wanted to protect you, me, and everyone he cared about. And Tanjiro then averted his watery eyes towards Kojiro's body, his throat threatening as he tried not to cry ugly again in front of you while giving his moving speech. He fought with all his strength until the very end, he continued, his voice filled with a mix of sorrow and admiration. He wanted us to set our hearts ablaze and keep getting stronger, to never lose hope or give up, to live just as fiery as he did. The words moved you, and before you knew it, tears were streaming down your face once more. And mine. You hold the flowers close to you, feeling your heart swell with a bittersweet mix of love and pain. You're touched by Tanjiro's gesture, and the thought of Kojo's, considered in his final moments, brought a warmth that almost outshined your grief. The ice you felt in your heart earlier started to melt, slowly being replaced by a warmth that only love could bring. You took a deep breath, trying to compose yourself. Thank you, Tanjiro, you muttered, your voice thick with emotion. Tanjiro nodded solemnly, his eyes never leaving yours. You could see the sincerity in his gaze, and it comforted you more than you could have ever imagined. It was as if Kojiro was speaking to you through him, reminding you of the love and protection he always provided. Without another word, you stretched your arm out for the teen, a gesture that spoke louder than any words could. Tanjiro blinked once, then twice, before taking the hint. He leaned into your embrace, wrapping his arms around you as you both hugged each other tightly, sharing the weight of your sorrow. Inosuke and Zenitsu watched from the side, feeling a pang of loss themselves. They sympathized with your grief, having formed a bond with Kojiro during their time on the Mugen train. Inosuke, with his usual barshness, stepped forward and patted Tanjiro's back before joining the hug. Zenitsu followed suit, his usual cowardness forgetting in his face of shared sorrow. The four of you stayed like this for a while, your heart beating in a sync with each other. It was silent agreement that you weren't alone in your grief. You could feel the warmth of their body against yours, offering you warmth with a solemn of comfort amidst the cold embrace of despair. After a while, you all pulled away, feeling a bit more at ease in each other's company. Inosuke, his usual gruff exterior now cracked open, offered you a gentle pat on the shoulder. We're here for you, Miss. Come Kabumima. Don't know, he said, clutching his fist. You couldn't help but sniffle a laugh at his attempt to pronounce Yukiona. Yeah, and if you ever need anything, ask. You can count on us. We'll be there and support you. Zenitsu added while trying to hold back tears. You smiled warmly at the three, feeling a surge of appreciation for their presence. Truly, you're thankful that they had been with Kojiro on the Mugen train. They had seen his strength, his courage, his love for you and everyone else. And now they are here to support you, offering you a piece of themselves to carry the weight of your grief. They each have lost people who were important to them, and you couldn't resist this undying urge to look after them, just like Otsu had looked after you. They have inwardly become additions to your little family in this world filled with demons and danger. Despite their well-built forms, they're still young and have plenty of room to grow, and you certainly wouldn't mind becoming a mother figure to them. It brings a warmth to your heart knowing Kojiro had found such good company in the young Kosugai. Thank you very much, you muttered, looking at them one by one. The sun was finally risen now, casting a warm glow over the area, almost as if it was trying to ease the pain of tragedy. The fire lilies in your hand seemed to flicker with the light, their fiery colors a stark contrast to the sober scene. Miss Rengoku! The moment it immediately abrupted the silence of sounds of footsteps approached you. You, Tanjo, Inosuke, and Zenitsu all glanced to see Goto and the other Kasukai members approaching. Goto, Tanjo says. The latter was carrying a small bag, obviously containing medicine. While the two of you were towing an extra orgry, no doubt it was for Otsu as you bit your lip, feeling a few wave of sadness wash over you. However, you remain strong as you force a smile, knowing they have come to collect the bodies of the fallen as well as tend to the injured. Besides, it was getting late, and you knew it was time to return to the demon-slaying course. We came as quickly once we received the word that there had been another passing, Goto exclaimed as he glanced at you, his eyes filled with sympathy. Sorry for your loss, Miss Rengoku, he says as he and the others bow their heads in respect. For a moment, the air was thick with the unspoken understanding of the pain that comes with losing someone. It's all right. Thank you. You reply, your voice steady despite the ache in your chest. You stand up, your knees a bit wobbly, but firm in your resolve as you gave them permission to proceed with their task in gathering Otsu's body. Gently they lift her onto a gurumi, while moments precise and respectful, you watch, feeling a mix of sorrow and admiration for their dedication to their duty, even in the face of such a personal loss. Once finished, you, with the bouquet of fire lilies still clutched to your chest, approach the grudgery, and now holds your Otsu. You lean over her peaceful face and whisper your final goodbyes, your voice shaking and the weight with your emotion. No doubt her body would be taken back to the kazana to be washed, dressed, cleaned, and prepared for the burial. It pained you, knowing you'd have to send a message to Toka in Shinuru via Kasukai Crow to let them know that Otsu's passing. Both Toki and Tsuru, who just like you, were raised by Otsu. They were two kids Kayaka met when he was younger. After he ran away from home, you'd been told, the two grew up in the same village and had lost their homes and families to demons solemnly, and had met each other by chance at the orchard house. The orphans that Otsu, late mother, Lady Otsu, had owned back in the day. Since the two were never adopted, they stayed with Otsu until they became adults, and even journeyed with her to live in a kazana after the orchard house fell into bankruptcy. The two eventually married and had a daughter named Mokata. Your heart aches at the thought of the little girl whom you come to love as a niece, Just how are you going to tell her that our beloved Opa-chan isn't here? You wanted to cry out, to scream into the heavens in anguish, but you knew that would not bring her back. Instead, you leaned down and kissed Otsu's forehead, feeling the colorless and coldness of her skin, a straight contrast of the warmth that once radiated from her. Thank you, Oba-chan, for everything. You murmur, your voice a mere whisper. You gave me a home, a family, and a purpose. You are my mother in every way that truly matters, and I promise to. Your words catch in your throat as your body trembles with the effort of holding back your sobs. The pain was too much to bear, but you had to stay strong, to carry on, to ensure that her sacrifice wasn't in vain. To be happy and take care of everyone. You take a deep breath, shakily, holding on to the warmth of her memory as you take a fire lily and place it in her hands, closing her fingers around the stem. Until we meet again. I love you. Straining, you watch Goto slowly cover her with a sheet, your heart feeling heavier with each second that passed, yet it hurt to know that she's gone. But you knew she was in a better place now, free from the burdens of this world. Closing your eyes, you take a steady breath before turning to Kojiro. Oba-chan's words were still fresh in your mind. She had not only used her breathing style to heal Kojiro's wound, but simply revive him as well. If so, then Kojiro would have awakened by now or shown any signs of movement that showed life. Despite the miraculous healing abilities of your Oba-chan's soul breathing style technique, there was a lingering fear that your husband may never wake up. You were beginning to think maybe it had all been for naught. No doubts crept into your mind, clouding your thoughts with uncertainty. Perhaps she arrived too late to save him, or perhaps it was a futile effort from the start. Though you wanted to wait longer, time was of essence, and you and the others needed to clear out before the Mugen train's derailment got to public. I guess it wasn't meant to be. Perhaps I'm not worthy of a happy ever after. You thought bitterly, sweet, while clenching your jaw. Well, at least it's good to know Kojiro wasn't returning home with an ugly open wound in his chest. You didn't want to see Senjiro see his big brother in that state. Slowly you knelt beside him, pressing your trembling hand to his cheek. Ko, you whisper, your voice cracking with emotion. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for choosing me, for loving me, for being the most amazing husband and father. Your hands lingered on his face, tracing the line of his jaw before you leaned in to gently kiss his lips. It's a kiss filled with sorrow, regret, and a love that runs deeper than any ocean. You linger for a moment, feeling the coldness of his skin, the straight contrast to the warmth that used to be there. This beautiful, kind, and lion-hearted man who you had come to love so fiercely was everything you could have wanted. You were going to miss his laugh, his kindness, his fiery spirit, but most of all, you were going to miss the way he looked at you, with love and protectiveness that could melt the coldest of hearts. You felt your heart rack into a million pieces. Your body felt heavy, but you had to be strong for the sake of everyone, especially Tayo, your precious baby boy, who's still waiting back for you at the butterfly estate, and is no doubt crying for you. It pained you to know he's never going to feel his father's warmth again or see him proudly smile. Pulling away, you press your forehead against his and smile. I'm madly in love with you, my husband. Not only do I promise that my love for you will grow each and every day, I promise to be your best friend and faithful wife each step of the way. I will be there for you, day or night, in richer or poor, in sickness and in health. You are the most loving, clever, and kindest man I've ever known. I invite you to share my life. I trust, appreciate, cherish, and respect you. My love. Are you my everything, and I'm proud to call you my husband. I love you, Kojiro Rengoku. You recited your wedding vows, feeling a tear roll down your cheek. Once done, You take a fire lily from the bouquet and place it in Kojo's folded hands, a slight symbol of your love and the bond you shared. The petals seem to grow brighter, almost as if coursing with your love and warmth. Goodbye, my flame. You stand up, wiping the tears from your face before turning your back. However, unbeknownst to you, Kojo's hand gave a slight twitch, his hand slowly gripping the flower stem tighter and tighter. You nodded to Gokyo and the Kasukai to progress as you sauntered over towards Tanjo and hugged the boy once more. With both Kojo and Otsu gone, your life would never be the same again. But with newfound resolve, you knew you had to keep on living. Yokio reaches for the sheet, ready to cover Kojo's deceased body. The male Kasukai member instantly pauses mid-motion, his hand hovering over Kojo's chest as his brows furrow in confusion. What was that sound? Gokyo stares at Kojo's seemingly lifeless body for a moment. Indeed, the noise seemed like it came from the flame pillar, but after a moment of nothing, he shakes his head. He assumed it's probably air escaping, since cavers tend to make sounds due to gas buildup. Just as Gokyo was about to proceed, the sound comes out once again. It's a low, almost impenetrable groan, but it's enough to make his heart leap from his throat. Suddenly, as if out of a horror cinema, Kojo's head turns to the side, his chest heaving with a sudden intake of air. Gyokyo stumbles back, dropping the sheet as he falls back onto his bottom, his eyes wide with pure shock and disbelief. Gyokyo-kun, what's wrong? Asked a female Kasukai member. It's Rengoku. He moved. The scared boy stammered, pointing at Kojo's body. What? Impossible. Everyone, including you, Tanjo, Zenitsu, and Inosuke, all glanced upon hearing the commotion as one of the Kasukai members calmly approached Kojo. Her eyes narrowed as she studied his body. Cautiously, she checked for his pulse. Her eyes widened as she gasped, her hand flying to her already covered mouth. It shouldn't be possible. He's alive! He's alive! Rengoku-san is alive! She yells, dropping her hand from her mouth. Miss Rengoku-san, Kojo's alive. Your colored eyes instantly widened at the sound of her shocked expression. Your heart, which had just accepted the harsh reality, suddenly ablaze with hope again as you stared in disbelief. The fire lilies you've been clutching fell to the ground, forgotten as you rushed to Kojo's side. Tanjo, Inosuke, and Zenitsu followed close behind, their eyes widened with astonishment. At that moment, everything seemed like a dream as you gently cupped your husband's face. Ko, your voice was trembling, unsure if it was true, if you were hearing it right. You watched, your breath hitched in your throat as Kojo's head slowly moves, yet his eyes remain shut. Another groan escapes him, this one louder than the last as he opens his mouth. Flower. Your eyes widen when you hear him speak, causing something to ignite in your chest as you quickly look to Tanjo, his eyes locking with yours as you both shared a look that read, Are you seeing this right now? Soon tears of joy streamed down your cheeks as you realized that Kojo was indeed alive. You couldn't form words, your mind revealing from the sudden resolve from fortune. You beamed, sobbing in happiness as you leaned over, your forehead touching his, feeling his warmth against your skin. You could faintly hear his heartbeat, the steady rhythm like music to your ears. The warmth from his body washed over you. And it was in this moment you knew it wasn't just your desperation playing tricks on you. Kojo was indeed alive. The realization hit you like a tidal wave, and you both found yourself unable to speak, unable to do anything but smile. Tanjo, Zenitsu, and Inosuke couldn't believe it either. Their senpai, their Anaki, was alive. The relief and joy retched on their hearts was palpable and hovered around the unconjugated Kojo, their eyes not leaving for a second. He's alive! Kojo-senpai has returned! Inosuke shouted, holding both his swords up high as tears of joy leaked from his eyes, as if the boar mask his eyes. I can't believe it. He's actually alive, Zenitsu added, wiping at his eyes as Inosuke bombastiously shouted echoed through the clearing. Tanjiro couldn't agree more with Zenitsu's statement. He was too left in disbelief as he felt a warmth spread across his chest, like a sunrise breaking through the cold night. Lady Otsu actually did it. He saved Kojo-senpai's life, he muttered, his eyes sparkling with tears. It's indeed a miracle. You should never have doubted your Oba-chan's words when expressed the joy that filled your soul, the relief that flooded your veins, or the gratitude that swelled in your heart. This was her final gift to you, her unmatched love. She wanted you to have a happy ending with the man she knew you'd love with all your heart. As you hovered over Kojo's unconscious form, you felt your chest tighten with joy. It was like someone had lit 1,000 suns inside you. His breath was shallow, but they were there, and they were real. You watched his chest rise and fall. The tears that fell from your eyes were no longer there. The sorrow, but a sheer happiness and relief. The air surrounding the Mugen wreckage was filled with sounds of anguish, as you and everyone couldn't help but rejoice. Everyone cheered, cried, and danced in ceremony of measurement. It felt like the world had stopped spinning for a moment, and in this steady warmth, gentle embrace, you had held all together in that moment of sheer happiness, after a Kazukai Crow had sent to deliver the news to the Demon Slaying course. Flame Hashira and Goku Kojo lives, Quack, revived by the retired soul Hashira Otsu Furuwawa.